Good evening. The meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, Mr. Gorski?
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella. Mrs. Antelis.
Here.
Mr. Braverman.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mr. Klein.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
Mr. Masters.
Here.
Mr. Tesler.
Here.
Mrs. Ferroni. Madam Board President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted February 24th, 2012, 1 at all schools, 2 Home News Tribune, 3 Cranberry Press, 4 filed with the clerk of the municipality. At this time, we will go to our student board member reports.
Yes, okay. Good evening, everybody. First, to start off, I'd like to start with the mention that here at the Monroe Township High School Library, we had a one-book read. The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake by Ami Bender was the book that was discussed. In terms of testing, the juniors will have HESPAs March 6th through March 8th. And for events that are coming up, on the 16th of March, we have Mr. Monroe. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what that is, it's basically a beauty pageant for the senior boys. It's very comical, and the students get a chance to display their talents, and I encourage all of you to participate. I mean, all of you to come, not participate. You could participate if you want. On February 28th, this is noteworthy that Princeton University visited our school for Mr. John Allen, who is a world language teacher. He was a finalist for the Distinguished Teacher of the Year Award. And in the process, students, Mr. Goodall, and teachers were interviewed on behalf of his performance as a teacher, and he will find out if he won in April. And I believe that I'm speaking for the MTHS faculty and student body when I say that I truly wish nothing but success and goodness for Mr. John Allen. And looking into next month, the beginning of it, April 19th through the 22nd, will be the Monroe Township High School's drama production Urinetown. And thank you.
Okay, thank you for your report. Number 6. Number 6 on the agenda has been postponed until our next meeting, so we will go to number 7, the presentation and adoption of the 2012-2013 tentative school budget. Dr. Hamilton?
Okay. While Mr. Washington is setting us up, Dr. Gorman and Mr. Gorski and I will be presenting the preliminary budget to the board. This budget is one that we are extremely proud of. It reflects what we believe are the sentiments of the board. It keeps students first. It responds to our commitment to return money to the taxpayers, and it's a budget that is very conservative and maintains the integrity of the valuable programs that the board has worked so diligently over the years to retain. I'm going to do a brief overview. Dr. Gorman will talk about the curriculum-related slides, and then, of course, Mr. Gorski will speak to the slides on the projector relative to state revenue, expenditures, and the bottom line, which everybody wants to know, the impact on the tax levy. The first slide, of course, acknowledges our board members. And our finance committee, which these are the members of the board who have worked closely with the administration to build this budget. Mr. Leary, who is the chair, Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Klein, Ira Tesler, and Patrice Farrone, who is the alternate. And this is the budget philosophy. These are the principles that were embraced in order to develop this budget. We work to create a budget that maintains the integrity of a high-quality, progressive school district, maintaining competitive programs that will produce a high yield for students, enhancement of effective and efficient operations, which looks at shared services and joint ventures with other districts and Middlesex County in particular, reducing costs wherever possible, maintaining class sizes, reducing the tax levy trend. The trends, as you know, have been that the tax levy has been increasing, and we're working to bring that down. A reflection on our core beliefs and our district goals, and a continued look at our long-range vision. So although we were working on this current budget, we also have to think about the impact on the district in the future and how future budgets will be impacted. We looked at some projected enrollments, which is the basis for how the budget gets constructed. Now, we had a budget steering committee meeting earlier this week, and these numbers have morphed since then. We were initially anticipating about 200 new students in for next year. That number has been downgraded a little bit because we just used enrollment from last month's enrollment report and made our projections from there. So we anticipate 138 students, which is still a remarkable influx of new students and still the highest in Middlesex County in terms of increased enrollment. What programs are in this budget? And these are curriculum related. This is a curriculum related slide, and I'll have Dr. Gorman speak to these slides. Sure. And I'm going to keep the clip.
I know you are. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? All right, cool. All right, so what's in the budget this year? The highlights that I spoke on, I'm going to elaborate. I just picked some of our key components instead of going through a 3-slide list item by item, because I'd have you guys here for a long time tonight. Last year, when the Board of Education gave back money to the district, we implemented our K-5 science program. So we're going to dedicate more time to further implementation because it's been in its first year of actual usage with our teachers. We have an incredibly extensive extra and co-curricular programs for all of our children, especially at the middle school and the high school, and I'll speak a little bit on that. And the primary reason for the large number is to make sure that our kids are competitive with those throughout New Jersey and all high school kids. And colleges especially these days look at a very eclectic approach for children to see what different venues they're able to get themselves involved so they could help the roundedness of their college experience. You see the core requirements. Those include the National Common Core standards. So the federal government has implemented new standards that sweep through the nation now, that are not independent to state. So we will be focusing a lot of our work on curriculum in aligning to those National Common Core standards, and they're very solid. Oh, you clicked on me. All right, so here are some other pieces that are in the budget besides those pieces. We need to maintain our technology initiative. So off of last year's one-to-one initiative, there are some outcomes that we want to make sure that we sustain at a very high level of implementation, and we want to continue on our track with all of our programs that are in place now. Look. So here are some. Here's an example of all of our sports. This is 2 slides worth, but it's a very comprehensive list of interscholastic sports at the high school level. And here is a very extensive list of all of our co-curricular programs at the high school as well. And the middle school sort of feeds up, so they're not as extensive. And again, there's a very large range in the types of activities that close to 1,800 kids can get involved with, and that'll be, I believe, close to 2,000 next year in the building.
Correct.
What does our balanced literacy initiative look like? Well, that's how we want kids to read, write, listen, and speak, and that's a very comprehensive approach that blends a workshop methodology with writer's workshop, reader's workshop, words their way, and other areas that make a total literacy, a total balanced literacy approach to a classroom in all of our schools. So we'll be focusing a lot on that next year. And our AVID program that Dr. Hamilton has brought to our district 3 years ago, I couldn't be prouder of it as it expands to where it was intended to expand, which is approximately 10 to 20% of the student population for the elective class, but that has the ability, because the strategies are so powerful, to affect the whole entire district from grades 4 to 12. So we are continuing our push to expand the AVID program, and the testimonials and the evidence has been overwhelmingly positive, as our first group of AVID kids are going to be seniors next year, so I'm really excited about that graduation. Some other highlights include our advanced placement courses. So we want to, again, stay competitive with the best in New Jersey. Currently, we have 20 advanced placement classes in all of our contents that range over different subject areas, which enable students to have the opportunity to get to the height of their high school career. And whatever path they choose, we want to make sure that the best have access and everybody in between as well.
So what's new in this budget includes, and I'll get into more detail a little later on, Apple Guard staffing, some facility maintenance, technology staffing, high school, middle school, and a new transportation van. The engine blew in one of the vans that needs to be replaced. So that's included in this budget.
So the one-to-one initiative is well into its 4th month, November, December, January, February. Entering close to our 5th month of our one-to-one initiative at the high school. And one of the lessons learned through the first year is that to maintain 2,000 machines, we are going to need some more resources, meaning technology resource people. So we budgeted 2 people there, and the vision is for them to really help maintain and support the many technology devices that we have in the school.
These new positions include, as Dr. Gorman just mentioned, technology staff, custodians, and staffing of Apple Guard. We wanted to make sure that we had the staff and resources in place at Apple Guard so that it was comparable to all our other schools. Also, that would include a principal, secretary, nurse, guidance counselor, security person, teachers, paras. Oak Tree will be spreading some of those youngsters out to reduce class size there, adding another algebra level at the middle school, and because of anticipated 100 and some odd new students at the high school, additional teachers to accommodate that. The slide is not very visible, but what it shows is those items that were removed from the budget. The first 2 items are the only things that were actually taken out of the budget. The other items were items that were requested that never made it into the budget. They didn't survive the budget defense round. Existing zero-period transportation and courtesy late-run transportation will be eliminated from this budget, with the exception of buses that are provided for students who need after-school support through the Basic Skills Program. These other positions are positions or programs that were requested that did not make it in the budget. And this PowerPoint will be up online for you to review once the board has had an opportunity to express their thoughts and views on it. And Mr. Gorski will talk about the revenue slide. And there are handouts available for these slides with the numbers because we knew you wouldn't be able to see them on the screen.
Thank you, Doctor. Good evening. This illustration, which is available up front, illustrates a comparative review of the sources of revenue that fund the operations of the district. Compared to 2012, the tentative 2013 budget shows an increase in general fund balance being appropriated from prior year's budgets. That's as a result of efficient purchasing and approvals of purchase orders, including a purchase order freeze that was initiated during the year. That comes forward in the excess surplus calculation to future years. Next is a very important item called transfer from other fund. Due to the efficient and effective management of the construction of this high school, and according to our auditor's update of the 2 bond referenda accounts pertaining to this school, there's a surplus as of January 31st, just in excess of $7 million, which includes a $3 million receivable from the state. The Finance Committee recommended an appropriation of $2 million from that surplus to reduce your debt service tax levy for the 12-13 year. That's like having not to make a couple mortgage payments on your home during the year. It offers relief to the budget. The local tax levy is under cap, and the cap calculation allows you to grow your tax levy in the general fund including an adjustment for enrollment, which Monroe had an automatic adjustment for, by 2% inflation, and also allows for slight adjustment to increases in health care costs. Other revenue includes tuition from Jamesburg School, transportation fees from Jamesburg School. They send their 9 to 12 students to our district. Miscellaneous income from adult education and renting of our facilities for private uses. And that's followed by state and federal revenues, which, although increased from last year, are still quite disappointing. We had spent a great deal of effort, Dr. Hamilton, Mr. Leary, Mr. Klein, and I, in state meetings all the way at the level of the governor's office to try to get more fair funding for our district, because more state aid funding offsets your general fund tax levy. And Monroe is harmed in this regard because of two metrics: property wealth per pupil and income per pupil. And we certainly have argued that the property wealth per pupil is a very skewed metric when it comes to Monroe, because 60% of the residents in town live in planned retirement communities, and the most recent ones have high valuations, high assessed values, but contribute no students. So it skews that metric to make it seem like everybody in Monroe has a very high home equity, when in fact that's not the case. And federal aid is just under 1%. The total revenues are increasing 3.38% from the prior year. And this slide shows the budget appropriations summarized by account category. More detail could be provided if you're interested. These reflect a very conservative approach to the budget, as Dr. Hamilton has mentioned. The principals, when they submit their budget, are subjected to a defense round where they have to justify everything in their budget to meet the core goal initiatives and orchestrated effective effort, which Dr. Hamilton introduced to the district when he started. This slide illustrates our per pupil high school costs, which came to a climax in 2011-2012, partially due to the 82 trailer units that were rented throughout the district and the cost associated with that. Those are essentially all removed from this 12-13 budget. And that, combined with an increasing student enrollment, dropped the comparative spending for high school per pupil to $15,264. That's a major improvement, and that helped Jamesburg also budget for their district, because they face a much tighter cap than we have, and share the costs of the high school per pupil costs. Administrative spending is always a hot button issue, and our district is 21% below the regional limit for administrative costs. And the way the state calculates the administrative cost limit is you're limited to your prior year adjusted budget or the regional limit. So basically, we are not allowed to increase administrative spending at all. Please. And here's a slide that illustrates the general fund state aid trends. In 2008-2009, we received just under $5 million. 2009-2010, it decreased to $4,668,000. But in the middle of the year, the state recognized the revenue shortfall in taxes and cut off payments to us, even though we had an approved budget in place. That caused a great hardship to the district. In 2010-2011, we suffered a catastrophic $4.4 million cut in state aid that left us with $238,696 for a district with approximately 5,600 students. In 2011-2012, the state aid increased, including the additional award that came mid-year, to just over $2 million. And that we were expecting to remain flat to next year, but in fact, we got a small bump to $2.6 million of state aid. But It's grossly understated compared to the state aid per pupil that our neighboring districts with the same district factor group receive, and we're still continuing to fight for more. This slide, I'm sure you'll be interested in, shows the tax rate trends for the district. In 2010, 2011, the budget had an increase of 15.18 cents, and that's after municipal cuts. 2011, 2012, which was the current year we're in, the budget increased to 18.66 cents, and that again is after cuts. When it was rolled out, it was over 20 cents. The 2012-2013 tentative budget, which you'll have before you tonight, is an 8.73 cent increase, and that is not all due to referendum money being applied. There's very conservative approaches to this district. We set a goal from the inception focusing on the tax rate, and we achieved our goal while still maintaining a very above-average educational provision. The average home assessment was $255 in 10-11. That was the increase in taxes, and that's for a home assessed at the average township assessment. We don't come up with that number. 2011, 2012, it peaked to $344. It's now dropping to an increase of $60. Here's a chart that better illustrates the falling off the cliff effect when it comes to the increase in the tax rate. And also, as evidence to our efforts to control costs and create efficiencies, you've heard the state refer to a model called adequacy. This is a bare bones assessment of what a school district needs to provide a minimally satisfactory, thorough, and efficient education. Items like parking lots and lighting are not included in this budget. Last year, we were $13.7 million above adequacy, again partially because of the trailer rentals, which are about $2 million in aggregate in the budget. This year, we've cut that almost in half to $7.5 million. That's a major improvement, and we're still maintaining our efforts to drop that even further because, as you may have read, the governor's initiative for distribution of state aid penalizes districts who are above adequacy. So we were focusing on that.
And this progress gives us greater credibility in our quest to seek more state aid from the State Department of Education.
That's correct. What is the cap? How does it calculated? My taxes went up more than 2%. I thought they were capped at 2%. We hear this all the time. The cap is not the overall budget. It's the general fund tax levy that's capped to a 2% increase from the prior year with adjustments for enrollment in health care. The district passed a resolution to eliminate the budget vote and extend the term of the existing board members to December 31st. That vote allows us to go to cap with provisions for an item called banked cap. And banked cap is a complex calculation, but basically it means any years preceding year where you didn't go to cap, including the township cut, you could roll that on top of your 2% and use that this year. We chose not to.
So our conclusions are this total budget represents a 3% increase, which includes salary adjustments, general operating costs, benefits, professional services, all those things that are a normal part or those things that are fixed costs are included in that 3%. We've made aggressive reductions in order to minimize the impact on taxpayers. Our ratables are lower than expected at $78 million, and Mike will elaborate a little more on what that means in terms of dollars and cents in relationship to the full picture.
As the previous slide illustrated, the tentative budget is going up 8.7 cents. And although the ratable environment and economic conditions are certainly beyond our control and the control of the municipality, a $78 million decrease in ratables is decreasing those who are sharing the cost of the tax levy. And when that happens, to that magnitude of 2%, it automatically increases the taxes by 5.25 cents, without an extra dollar of appropriations. In other words, if we kept our budget exactly flat to appropriations from last year, you would still have a 5.25 cent increase because those sharing the burden of the tax levy are diminished.
And with this budget includes the allocation for additional students. And although we have this increase in enrollment, we will not actualize the state funding for that until next year when the October 15 count comes in. We took a careful look at staffing. It was very important to continue to be a comprehensive school district because in order to get on the top 100 lists, you have to be a comprehensive school district, and that includes the programs and services that are part of the calculation for the above adequacy designation. We made sure there's a balance between our budget, our program, and looking at the future for our children. Looking at student and staff needs, a large part of what we've been committed to includes professional development for our teachers. We can't very well expect our teachers to provide quality services to our children without providing them the training to do it. Technology, which is a big initiative, opening of Applegarth, reviving capital improvement projects. We really have to be more aggressive with allocating money for capital improvement projects in our district so that as our buildings become older and in need of repair, we have some reserve there to address that. Generally what happens in the budgeting process, that's the first area where money is removed because people don't see that. But when you start hitting potholes in the parking lot and the roof starts leaking, it becomes more evident. And go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to mention also, we have a very fine grant coordinator in the district who has reached out for every opportunity to bring in any external revenue sources possible. And we've recognized great gains in grant monies this year also.
We've made sure that we maintain the academic programs at average or state median costs and working aggressively to close the gap as the state defines over adequacy. So that concludes our preliminary budget presentation.
Yes. First session. Questions by the board, public, and then.
So you don't have to make the motion first?
Want to ask the questions for the board? You want to ask the board? Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
You would make a motion before we make a motion.
What's next on the agenda?
We're doing the presentation. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to the board if you have any questions or comments in regard to the budget. No one? Okay, then I'm going to open up to the public to come up to the microphone to give your name and address for the record, and this is in regard to the tentative budget, not the public forum. So if anybody has a question in regard to the budget, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
15 Nathaniel Street. Just a couple quick questions. On the items that were left out of the budget, the first two look like transportation. I believe that there was some courtesy busing. Is that going to help us achieve the over-adequacy problems that we have experienced in the past with budgets?
Yes, it will absolutely, and that was a strong recommendation because we, as the principals go through budget defense rounds, we have to do a budget defense round also with the county office. And that was a strong recommendation from them for us to begin to bring that number down. So it absolutely has an impact on that over adequacy spending.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, anyone else from the public?
I just have a few observations. Without going into detailed questions on the budget, the thing I'm, I guess, most concerned with is the fact that the $2 million, which was removed from the debt service that we have to pay, and fortunately, the total tax revenue, the income that's needed for this budget, stays basically the same for 11 and 12 and 12 and 13. My real concern is that the fact that we went to cap, except for a couple $100,000, without giving a lot of consideration to the long-term impact of that $7 million that we're going to be having. As we go out, and let's say next year we have a $2 million, the year after that is $3 million. That fourth year, well, maybe some of you won't be on the board, so it's not that important, but a lot of us will still be taxpayers, and then we're really going to get hit with that figure. I would have preferred to see we had an additional grant from the state of like $6 million, so I think that's right. But maybe we could have limited that use of that funds to 2%, and put 400,000 roughly back instead of as a savings to the general tax levy. If we keep just raising that general tax levy and keep coming the cap, it's going to be very difficult. I would like to see a concept where we say, and maybe you have the concept, but that, all right, let's look at what we can afford to get from the taxpayers in the most conservative way. And then say, okay, this is the figure. And then work with your other source of revenue and use that as your basis for whatever your expenditures are going to be. As I say, you may do that. I just don't know your process in doing this. As regarding the state funding, the state allocates probably, not probably, they do, because I ran the numbers. Statewide, 80% of their funding goes to equalization aid. In Middlesex County, there's 3 districts, Monroe and 2 others, that get 0 equalization aid. So if 80% goes to equalization aid, unless they raise those other categories, we're going to get nothing. Now, I understand that we've looked into this ability to get equalization aid, but maybe we should look again, because that's killing us from a state standpoint. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to talk? Okay. Mr. Gorski?
Thanks, Mr. Roche. In response to the question about the application of the bond referendum money, if we had not applied the $2 million, it would have resulted in an 11.5-cent increase to the budget instead of 8.73. What the board could have done was to appropriate the full $7 million of surplus this year, and you would have received the tax decrease that I'm sure everybody would have appreciated. But then next year, without that infusion, without that one-year stimulus, you would have a tax spike that you certainly wouldn't appreciate. The planning that went into this by the Finance Committee and the board as in whole was to use an amortized approach, to use $2 million of the 7 this year, also allowing the state grant monies to be received by the district, and to utilize the remaining $5 million over the next 2 years. Hopefully, and we're not economists on the board to the extent that, and I feel comfortable in saying this, but hopefully in 2 to 3 years down the road, the economy will stabilize enough that we won't be recognizing a 2% decrease in ratables, which is an automatic 5.25-cent increase to the budget. That by itself should be enough to offset the stimulus that's being introduced by the bond surplus money. With regard to the other item that you brought up, equalization aid, thank you. Equalization aid is based upon the number of LEP, limited English proficiency students, and students that are at risk or low income, as reported on our ASSA Ivory October 15th. Monroe has very low numbers in these regards, especially the low income calculation. So therefore, we are not eligible, according to the state's calculation, for that under the state's model.
Regarding that issue, Jamesburg gets $4 million in equalization aid. We take Jamesburg students in high school. Now, you know, are all the students who are qualified for this in the 8th grade or below? I don't think so. I think we get them as they come in, so why aren't we getting credit for that? And regarding the issue on the 8 cents, theoretically, if the equalization went down equally throughout the town, even though we would be paying a higher rate, we wouldn't be paying any higher in income tax. Because you have to get X number of dollars. I don't care whether we got a $20 billion equalization rate or a $10 billion. If you still need the same dollars, I don't care what the tax rate is. It's not going to change. The tax rate will change, but the total money that each taxpayer has to pay is not going to change.
Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, Doug Poy, 4 Tamarack Road. Excuse me. I have some questions about this particular document. I don't know what to call it, but it's that document.
Appropriation summary.
Okay, all right, that one. Under special ed instruction, and really I'm just wanting clarification of these items. There's new staff, which almost accounts for the $1 million increase in that particular category. Which leads me to believe that we're hiring quite a few new staff in special ed. Is that understanding correct? And if so, why such an increase in new staff?
We do have an increase in the number of special ed students, and we are also being aggressive with returning students to our district who are currently placed out of district. So while that account goes up, we're trying to reduce the out-of-district or tuition category by bringing those students back. And in order to do that, we have to provide the services that are required by law as stipulated in their IEPs. So yes, there are a number of new special ed staff, resource center staff, speech providers that are considered professional services.
Okay, then that would tie into my next question, which is on the second page, tuition, where the out-of-district placement tuition is decreasing by about $750,000. And that's because we're going to be bringing so many of the out-of-district students back into district?
That is correct.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Mr. Poy, to elaborate on that, that's mostly correct. It also is, some of that out-of-district tuition is being offset with IDEA grant money, which will pay for that. So not the full 700, but a good amount of that will be is recognized by district efficiencies by bringing students in. But an equal part is by charging off the monies to IDEA.
Okay, thank you. Student-related services, new staff, where it appears that we're it looks to me as if this is one new staff member, but it does increase the percentage increase for that category considerably. Could you just elaborate on what that particular position is? This is on, I don't know which page, but it's under student-related services.
You have to go to the big book.
What?
It may be the behavior.
Yeah. It's a behavioral specialist that's needed to be employed by the district.
Okay, thank you. And for school administration, a new staff, it's almost $250,000 for new staff for school administration. That's certainly more than one person. Could you just elaborate on what that covers?
Most of that, if not all, actually, is related to the opening of Applegarth. Principals, secretaries are charged to that account. Who else?
Principals and secretaries, that's it. and that's offset by savings recognized through other administrative accounts. As I mentioned, we're not enabled to increase our aggregate administrative spending at all.
And under transportation, there's something called the new FCC mandate. It's almost $200,000. Could you explain what that is?
That's a new Federal Communication Commission, I believe that the acronym stands for, mandate that the districts are supplied with radios that communicate and directly communicate with the police departments and the dispatcher in a more efficient fashion, so we had to upgrade.
Is this required of all the districts in the state?
Yes.
Okay. And the final one, capital outlay. Basically, what caught my eye is the fact that it's going up almost by 200%. If you could just elaborate on why such a big increase.
Yeah, 200% is certainly an exciting increase, but it's a small account base to begin with, so it's easily swayed by anything. What's in that account is the district's ability to replace and repair a roof at Brookside School, which is extended past its useful life by probably 3/4 of a decade or more, and is leaking and in need of replacement. The roof itself is going to be about, and we don't have a bid or a spec yet, but I would estimate between $600,000-$700,000, and there's also engineering costs that are associated with its replacement. Generally, an item like this would be a bond referendum type item because of its magnitude. But the additional state aid that we received and some other maneuvering with the budget enabled us to fit this within our cap, address our school's needs, facility-related, and not hold it off for a bond referendum or kick the can down the road. We're hitting it right now in the budget, and we're going to provide for that school's future.
Fine. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Prezioso, Ada Equestrian Way. I'd like to thank all the board members that got in touch with me over the weekend. I appreciate that. Will there be any discussion to take place in the budget for the iPads in the resource room in the upcoming discussions?
So as Ms. Ruella has put together her budget for special education students, if the needs are appropriate and can match and is a necessary outcome, then we would include that type of technology. But to fully implement that level of an iPad component, we're not ready as a district to put together the infrastructure and designate to just one subgroup. We are starting to get feedback from community and constituents about the usage of iPads in the schools. So we're starting to formulate a plan on how to expand that piece, but it's more than just handing the kid an iPad and loading up individual apps on it. There's a lot of security behind it, infrastructure, and that rolls into more complex funding. And we're going to be looking at that the following school year as we get ready for our first refresh here at the high school.
Okay, this would be just something that would be in the resource room so the special needs kids could get a jump on how to use something, not to take it home, just to have it in the resource room. 5 minutes a day is going to help them move into the next level in high school because they'll be able to use it then. Some of these kids are kids today are tech savvy, and our children are very, very behind, and we need a little boost to get them up there. The resource rooms, you're talking about 3 or 4 resource rooms to have these kids just to get a leg up. And it's not everybody else, just the special needs kids in the resource rooms or the kids that need it. So it's not a big deal. So I would hope that the board would decide to discuss it, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Hamida Thanawala, 11 El Dorado Way. Question, I understand you're recommending that buses for 0 period and for tag is going to be canceled for the next school year. Can you tell me how much you're saving in doing that?
Mike?
In aggregate, it's a little over $450,000.
The benefits that our kids get out of the zero period and the busing is immense. My son is in science tag, LAL tag, and math tag. If the busing is not provided, he's not going to be able to accept all of these talented and gifted programs because we are working parents and we don't have a driving nanny. There are other kids out there who stay, I know, after school with their grandparents. They don't drive. Some of them just are at other families because their parents are working. So I urge you to think about what you're taking away from our children. And if you are keeping busing for basic skilled kids, which are on one side of the spectrum, I urge you to also keep that same facility for kids on the other side of the spectrum. Because as much as you don't want the basic skill kids to stop learning, you don't want tag level children to stop being at the tag level. And the $450,000 that you're saving, can you please just convince me that you haven't thought of any other programs out there that you can cut and keep the zero period and the late busing?
Ma'am, you may recall that last year, the zero-period busing was eliminated from the budget, and it was only through a one-time gift from the state in the form of 1 year's extra state aid that the board was allowed to have the resources to reinstate that program. Those monies are now depleted. And as Dr. Hamilton previously mentioned, our budget goes through a great deal of scrutiny and analytical procedures at the county office. And our county executive business administrator and the county executive superintendent of schools has been pointing out that we're over adequacy, far more than our peers, and that we offer a great deal of services beyond what our peers offer. This is one item that sticks out, and we hear every year after year that should be cut. It's been on the cutting block probably for the last 7 years. And eventually, when you cut something from the budget, it's going to offend someone in some manner. But it was the Finance Committee's decision to eliminate this.
And you couldn't.
If I may, let me just jump in. You raise a valid point regarding basic skills students and tag students. And we're going to double check, and I can give you a call offline, but I'm almost certain that they will still be accommodated through the same busing protocol as the basic skills students, but I'll double check that.
So what I hear from you, Dr. Hamilton, is that you're telling me that the tag children will not be affected by
I'm
this.
saying I'm going to check.
You're going to check, but you're making me very hopeful because that is my big concern.
Valid concern.
Okay, and thank you. I'll wait for you to call me back. Just something away from busing. My daughter came with this. She came home with this flyer. She's in middle school. She's in 7th grade. And there are clubs that you have in the middle school. How much do you spend per club? Do you have any idea?
No.
Okay.
It varies tremendously.
Because I'm sure you're paying overtime to the teachers, and you have supplies, and you have busing, of course, again. So let me tell you why I raised that point. In the list is, and I was a bit surprised to see these clubs, Nail Art Club, Rock Music Fan Club, Jewelry Club. Why are we spending money on this? I don't see a debate club. I don't see a performing arts club. I don't see a computer graphics club. What are we going to learn out of nail art? I will teach my daughter how to polish her nails. So,
Yeah, I can speak on this. The catchy names are for the middle school kids as an attraction to engage them beyond the academic day. Going from all types of middle school philosophy research, the external component that you address that we joked about is a very important piece of pre-adolescence. The cost is not nearly as extensive as you think. It's 10 sessions for an hour and a half times 30 clubs. So that's not an over amount for that piece. It's going to be affected, however, by the busing, which upsets me personally as an educator and a middle school educator at the core of what I do. But that's an incredibly important pre-adolescent component to those tween years between 12 and 14 years old, and interacting socially. And there are mathletes and different types of academic clubs there that might not be captured in a volunteer piece on the club list there, that exist in different venues. And there are two separate sessions, one that runs in the fall and then one that runs in the spring.
I'm aware of that.
So don't get caught up on the glitz of the name. It's attracting the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kid to try to attract them to go past the school day a little bit and get that social piece, which is so important. And it's called developmental responsiveness to that age group in middle school philosophy and research.
Mr. Gorman, if I may, I have spoken to kids that go to these clubs. They are kids that are my daughter's friends.
Mm-hmm.
There is a director's chair club, and she said she was thoroughly bored because all they did was watch movies and critique the films. And she said, I can watch movies at home if I wanted to.
All right,
I do,
Yeah.
and I'm not taking this away from you. I do understand the importance of clubs, and like I said, if you're spending the money, please spend it in a meaningful way. Give them a debate club, give them a chess club, give them a computer graphics club, something that they can use and have the social skills. They'll all see each other, but they learn something meaningful. That's all I'm saying.
The mechanism for clubs at the middle and the high school level is usually student interest driven. That's usually how it comes. So like at the high school, if a new club wants to be introduced, students can sort of recruit a teacher, and then they would try it for a year, and then if it holds, then it becomes a permanent club. Similarly, at the middle school, they're driven for kids. Now, quite honestly, if that person is bored, and we should go offline with this also, because I want to talk about that specific club, but that kid shouldn't go to the club because there's not a mandate on it. And we do evaluate
my
them
message
to them.
here, I hope you get my message. My message is, let's spend the money meaningfully. Our kids are going to clubs, let's have meaningful clubs.
Definitely.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
for your information, the supplies that are related to these clubs are raised by the students participating in the club. The only costs associated with these clubs are for the advisor's coverage.
Okay, for the jewelry making club, I don't think they pay up anything additional for the supplies for the jewelry.
Yes, they certainly do.
Okay, all right. But I hope you get my message. My message is, let's have meaningful clubs. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else from the public?
All right, my name is Jeff Fang. I live on 4 Muirfield. I have one comment to make. I'm very encouraged to see Dr. Gorman presented that AP exams are mandated. And I also like to understand, do we have any budget to cover the AP exams? If we do, what are the costs that they cover?
They are included in the budget, and they are about $95 a piece.
So in other words, the Monroe Township High School students, if they take AP exams, those $95 fee will be waived by the Monroe High School.
Well, they're not necessarily waived, but they're covered by the school budget, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Esther Gregory, 2 Kelly Court. Just a question on what IDEA is?
Individual with Disabilities Education Act. It's a pass-through program through the federal and state governments where we're provided revenues to bring up the standards of those classifications of students.
That falls under new staff for special education?
Where are you referring to?
The first page for special education instruction?
Special education instruction does not correspond with IDEA at all.
Okay.
IDEA is covered under special projects on the very last page.
Okay. There's another section for school-sponsored athletics for other objects. The breakdown, what that is, there's an increase for 4%.
That's mandatory dues for athletic organizations, membership fees, and also costs associated with various interscholastic athletic events.
Student-related services, purchase professional educational services. What that is in detail?
That's provisions for services related by professionals for students in an educational format, such as speech therapists and some other account categories in there.
That falls under that
Behavioral
subject?
specialists, speech therapists, people who are not under the employ of the district who come and provide special services for special needs students with IEPs.
Okay, because there's a section for special education on the front, so you duplicated it?
No, hardly. There's
Hardly.
several different
break it down?
categories here that are different. Nothing is duplicated, I could assure you that.
And student services, I'm not sure if this was covered already, but it said employee specialist you were talking about before, purchase professional educational services for student services. After guidance.
Student services, again, is special education components. And which line item were you interested in?
Purchase professional educational services.
Those are for licenses for educational programs used in that category.
But not an employee specialist?
Not for, not an employee specialist, no, not in that category.
Some more, you have just other. For curriculum, it falls under other purchase services, other. What's the other?
Other objects is professional memberships to curriculum organizations. Phi Delta Kappa, for example, is one of them that provides a wealth of resources through the internet to improve the curriculum process.
Is that just for high school?
No, district-wide.
My other one is the last page. For capital outlay, it's equipment. Is that all for Applegarth?
No, the capital outlay equipment includes the van that's over 15 years old and has a blown engine. And
So
it
for
also
busing?
includes, beg your pardon?
Busing? Is that
It's
the
a
same van?
new, yeah, busing van to accommodate, I think it's a 16-passenger van, and it needs replacement. The other items that are in that category are special education auditory enhancing equipment.
Is that for the new high school
No.
room?
No, it's not for the new high school, no, no. What you're referring to is what the board approved at the last meeting to equip the room at the high school for the autism program.
Where does that
will be
fall?
paid for from the bond referendum funds, which are not part of this budget.
So the van is not for that?
The van is
Who's the
for
van?
student delivery within district, and that is a general fund expenditure.
So what equipment, it's broken down to each school?
Equipment this is a general category that covers the whole district. I have the detail for the school if you should desire.
With or without the Oprah form?
Beg your pardon?
With or without an Oprah form?
Without.
I see that.
Without.
Okay.
This is your budget. You're welcome to any information in here. Just have the courtesy to give me a call, and like other members here could attest, you're more than welcome to come in and review anything you'd like.
Okay. For the equipment, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, then we will close the public forum budget part and have a motion and a second to accept the tentative school budget. Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Leary. And we've gone through.
to read it.
Oh, you have to read that.
It is recommended that the members of the Board of Education approve the following amounts and resolution for the 2012-2013 tentative budget. Be it resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education that the 2012-2013 tentative general fund budget be adopted in the amount of $95,332,518 and a tentative general fund local tax levy in the amount of $82,177,667 and a tentative special revenue fund in the amount of $913,428 and a tentative debt service budget in the amount of $10,281,520 and a tentative debt service local tax levy in the amount of $7,572,846, whereby the tentative 2012-2013 budget totals $106,527,466. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has been notified of state aid amounts, and where such state aid amounts are for the 2012-2013, the categorical special education aid is $2,071,162, and the 2012-2013 categorical security aid is $86,160, and the 2012-2013 categorical transportation aid is $480,206. And for the 2012-2013, the debt service aid is $661,887. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has estimated a state aid amount pursuant to application, and for 2012-2013, the estimated extraordinary aid amount is $214,453. And whereas School District Bylaw 0147, Policy 3440, Policy 4440, and NJAC 6A:23B-1.2b provides that the Board of Education shall establish in the annual school budget a maximum expenditure amount that may be allocated for such travel and expense reimbursement for the 2012-2013 school year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education hereby establishes the school district travel maximum for the 2012-2013 school year at a tentative sum of $158,422 unchanged, and be it further resolved that the school business administrator shall track and record these costs to ensure that the maximum amount is not exceeded. And now therefore let it be resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrator board secretary file the required documents with the county executive superintendent of schools.
Okay, so it had been moved and seconded by Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Leary. I'll ask again if there's any comments or questions by members of the Board of Education. And seeing none, we will have a roll call.
Ms. Antelis?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Klein? Yes. Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Tesler?
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz?
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion unanimously passes. And if I just may have a moment?
Absolutely.
I would like to very much thank the board for their diligence and reviewing and helping to prepare this tentative budget. I'd like to thank Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Gorman for all their hard work and effort. I'd like to thank the principals, many of which are in the back tonight, for the preparation of many of the documents that are included in this very large book. And I'd also like to thank the business office staff, including Mrs. Romano, who's a member of our team here in the audience tonight, for their help with the budget.
And lastly, we'd like to thank Mike for his hard work and time that he spent writing that book. Okay, at this time we will go to the public forum, so anyone who wishes to speak to the agenda, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing none, we will go to the superintendent's report with Dr. Hamilton.
Okay. Madam Board President and members of the Board of Education, it is my recommendation that personnel items A through Q be approved by roll call vote.
Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Braverman? Is there any comments or questions for Dr. Hamilton? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Ms. Antelis?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Tesler?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Personnel items A through Q passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to board action items, Madam Board President and members of the Board of Education, it is my recommendation that the board approve board action items A through G by roll call vote.
So moved.
Ms. Antelis, Mr. Tesler? Again, is there any comments or questions? Mr. Klein?
On A, there is, I don't know if he's a high school student or he's a teacher, is going for, I guess, professional development at the cost of $3,847. Can you tell me what that is?
You want to take that, keep the supporting documents.
I do believe that's Project Lead the Way, Mr. Klein, which is part of the STEM Academy. It was approved last year as part of the high school program.
Now, is this a student or is this?
Now it's a teacher.
Okay.
I do, if that's just talking, hearing the number, when you said professional development, we're just going to double check to make sure that's the
Thank
right
you.
person.
Is there any other questions?
No, I'm not finished yet. He's looking
Oh,
up.
I know, but while he's looking it up.
Yep.
That's what it is.
That is Project Lead the Way, and that is a teacher.
Okay, and then we go to D. D is in dog. 8 high school students, $6,500. This is for Middlesex Arts and Education Center, and 24 middle school students. What is that?
That is a performing arts program that our children make application to and they audition for, and if they are accepted in, the tuition is covered by the district.
So we pay that. And then lastly, on F, new curriculum. We had high school students here 2 months ago asking for more AP courses. The laboratory biology, I guess I can understand that. The 3D art and the studio art, is there a need for that?
That was presented in curriculum last week, and that was finished curriculum that was written over the summer that was previously adopted in the previous budget.
Okay.
So it's part of the learning academies and the transition to the new high school program.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leary?
I'm intrigued by item E. It says it's recommended that the board approve student number 86813 and 4 wrestling coaches to attend the Wrestling Region 5 Championship in Atlantic City. Why does a single student require 4 coaches?
Mr. Goodall, am I correct in saying that this is a championship tournament? Yeah, he's representing the state. He's the best of the best, so we're sending our coaches with him, and he's representing Monroe Township in the state finals, I believe. Yeah, and that is typical of all districts on how they proceed with the elite in this area.
Yes, he won the 120-pound West Wrestling Region 5 Championship Saturday night. He now advances to state competitions. He will need 2 rooms and 2 coaches. Yes, that is accurate.
It seems a little excessive.
Yeah, we questioned, when that came in, we questioned the amount, and we double-checked. Those were the cheapest rooms. The coaches are not putting in for transportation reimbursement or anything, any of those other expenses, or their meals for that matter. That is the cost.
I have a test. It's the smell test. That does not pass the smell test.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Anyone else from the board? Okay, then we'll have a roll call. We didn't do a roll call.
Board action.
Roll call for board action items A through G. Ms. Antelis?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes, with the exception of item E.
So noted. Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Tesler?
Yes.
Mrs. Volpanovic?
Yes.
Madam Board President, board action items A through G passes.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Then we will go on to the Business Administrator's report. Mr. Gorski?
Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through C be approved by consent roll call.
Second.
Ms. Antelis, Mr. Masters? You're not reading B, are you? Are there any questions for Mr. Gorski? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Ms. Antelis?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes to all, recuse on C, section 2.
That's the refunding ordinance. Yes, so noted. Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Tesler?
Yes.
Volpanovic?
Yes.
Madam Board President, board action items A through C passes.
And that concludes your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. This time, we'll go to the Board President's report, and since we just met 2 weeks ago, I really don't have much to report. I know there's going to be an Applegarth update, and at the last meeting, I know there was a request from the Human Relations Commissions to have a board member sit on the commission, and I'd just like to thank Amy Antelis for volunteering to represent the board. Thank you. At this time, we'll go to committee reports. Anyone from the board who has a committee they'd like to report on? None?
I'll go for it, go.
Mr. Masters?
We had a Buildings and Grounds meeting yesterday. It's not just an Applegarth report.
All right.
I don't want to be the Applegarth guy. Lengthy Buildings and Grounds meeting. We did discuss progress with Applegarth. We have a pretty lengthy, I don't want to call it a punch list of items, action items is better, things we're moving through, furniture, painting, flooring projects, things like that, going along quite well. We also talked about the renovation, generally how it was going. We've had some state inspectors on site, POSHA, and I think the state EPA, if I'm wrong, correct me, I think that's who it was. We decided to do an overlay on the roof and save the rest of the roofing money for Brookside. I'll discuss that in a second. Some of the lead paint testing started. We did, I think, all the testing on the inside. It's out. It's being evaluated. The outside hasn't been started yet. They did find some preliminary lead paint in 3 areas. The boiler room, big surprise. The kitchen and one of the stairwells. That's pretty much it for Applegarth. Am I forgetting anything? No. The trailer Plan B update's been temporarily postponed. We're still discussing that. We discussed the demographic report and decided to implement an ad hoc community committee. We discussed naming of the Monroe Township High School Performing Arts Center. We're still discussing that. We discussed the daycare program at Mill Lake. No facility updates are needed. That's actually going along quite well. We had a BASC update. We're discussing personnel. I think if Ira was here, I would tell him to talk about, we're going to actually ask personnel to talk about hiring a new coordinator for the in-district BASC program. Some legal issues. We also decided to do some radon testing, in all of the schools and the main office. We briefly discussed metal detectors in light of recent events. That's still being discussed. And we approved, as you can see in the budget, another layer of a roof for Brookside School at a cost of about $800,000. Again, it hasn't gone out to bid like Mr. Gorski said before. I
think we're looking for an overlay picture right?
Yeah, what was that picture?
Of what the roof would look like?
Because we're actually going to cover the roof.
The current Brookside roof is red, and there's a good chance it's not going to be red when we do the roof, when we redo the roof. Any other committee reports? Okay, seeing none, we will go to any other Board of Education business. Is there any, Mr. Klein?
Couple of things. If you read in the paper about a week ago, when the state announced the additional school aid that they were issuing, also in the article was that the State Department of Education hired somewhere around 50 some odd other employees to work in the different counties. My opinion's political jobs, so that's where that money is going. You've heard me talk about the state constitution before. Here is exactly what is said and written in the state constitution. And this is Section 4, Paragraph 1. The legislature shall provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of free public schools. You heard, free public schools for the instruction of all the children in the state between the ages of 5 and 18. In other words, kindergarten to 12th grade. Remember I said free public education. Then we got a part of Paragraph 2, which I'm going to paraphrase. The fund for the support of free public schools shall annually, the state will annually appropriate funds to the support of free public schools and for the equal benefit of all the people of the state. When we have to pay 97 to 98% to educate the children, that is not a free public education. A letter I sent you here, all about my letters, and some people make fun of it. I finally broke down and sent the letter to Mr. Sciarra. He's the one from the Newark Education Law Center. He's the one who brought the Abbott versus Burke to the Supreme Court. He's the one that also brought a suit for the state formula. And he's also the one who just recently brought the suit to have the money that was cut from the 31 Abbott Title I school districts reversed and won. So I wrote a letter to him, and in the letter, I explained how it affected our district. In other words, everything that he won and all the money that he wasted, how it affected us. And I was happy to receive a phone call from his representative. I was on the phone with the young lady for over an hour. I explained everything that was here. And she said the same thing that I have said now for 2 years. We are entitled to sue the state for our equal funding and our fair funding. That Monroe Township does not provide free public schools for all the residents. And I've asked at the board meeting to contact and see what we have to do to sue to get our fair share. Well, I'm going to leave this out. I'll handle this at a board meeting. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Anyone else from the board? Okay, seeing none. 14, closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Monroe Township, the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21 to discuss the following subjects: student matters, harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents, number 103 and 104. The discussion conducted in closed session can be discussed to the public at such time as the matters have been resolved. Motion to go into closed session? Mr. Klein, Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Klein, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then at this time, we will go into closed session. I do not think it's going to be a very long one. Okay, at this time, we will move back into the public portion of the meeting and go to the public forum. Again, anyone wishing to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Tom Notstein, 15 Nathaniel Street. Just a quick question. At the last board meeting, someone came up and asked about the resolution that was discussed in closed session. And I believe Dr. Hamilton stated that he was not allowed to, she wasn't able to disclose the employee that was being discussed. Now, I checked, and actually you should have been able to disclose the employee that was being discussed as part of the open, the Sunshine Law and the Open Public Records Act.
That is correct. And I did follow up with that as well to double check with our attorneys. And although the employee number was utilized, if a question came up, I could have disclosed that and would not have breached confidentiality. So
Who was that employee? That
Sharon
was,
Biggs.
That was to her, okay. Also, with regards to the send-receive agreement with Jamesburg, I noticed that we are now, the number that came across as what we're spending now per pupil, is that in fact the number that Jamesburg is paying for the send-receive privilege?
Close. That's the number that Jamesburg is budgeting for appropriations to Monroe to offset our costs. The budget is based on an estimated number of students and an estimated tuition rate, which is calculated by the Department of Education software. At the conclusion of the school year, we'll calculate the actual costs and the actual average daily enrollment of Jamesburg, and we will settle the difference accordingly with a due to or due from Jamesburg. And Jamesburg is current on all payments of the differences on previous year's calculations.
Well, when you do it, though, how do they know what to budget for in their budget for that?
Well, the county office makes sure that what we're budgeting as revenue from Jamesburg matches exactly what they're budgeting for appropriations. There must be a match or we get fatal budget errors. And again, it is based on a very accurate estimate, and I do not expect a big deviation this year from those figures.
And the number that you stated before now, it was probably just misspoke. You mentioned that was the high school cost, but that's the cost for district-wide student pupils, correct?
The figure that was on the screen was illustrated of the most material cost that we have that was for a high school student.
And is it that the same for a middle school?
No, middle school is less.
Okay. And but that high school number is what Jamesburg obviously would be looking at.
That's exactly correct.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public?
Hi, this is Jeff again from 4 Millfield Boulevard. And along with me, a couple of parents, we have common issues. That's why we come up here. It's not overwhelming the board and superintendents. But also our issue, I think, is not only the current issue, but also it's going forward. So that's why we want to have this open forum to discuss about it. And hopefully going forward, we have consistent policy to deal with this situation. The situation is this. The parents here were Monroe residents. Our children grew up from Monroe, from elementary school to middle school. And now the only difference is right now they attend the Middlesex Contact Academy in Addison. So they didn't go to Monroe High School. And right now they're planning to take the AP exams. And unfortunately this year, for whatever reason, so far the information we know is they cannot take AP exam at our home school district. And their school is too small, they cannot offer. But the other students, they always go back to their home school district to take AP exams. But our Monroe school, for whatever reason, this year was not able to offer the opportunity. And I know we reached out to our superintendent, and he's very kind, reluctant, look into this issue. But still, we want to take this opportunity to voice our concern and get to know more information, get to be educated, and our recommendation how we can do better going forward so that we can reduce the grant, reduce the future issues. So that's just my open comments, and I will allow other parents to have their say.
Hi, I'm Jamie Shah, 6 Camelot Drive. I'm here for my son and the other children, where there are 9 students from the academy. They, like he said, they all grew up here. Mr. Gorman, Dr. Gorman, he took us camping when they were in 7th grade. So you know our children, they're not strangers. My other son attends this high school right now. In the past years, all the students have been able to take the AP exam in this district. And the districts in Middlesex County, they are allowing the other students in the academy to go, like for Edison, Piscataway, Metuchen, all the townships, the high schools are accommodating them. There's only 9 students that want to take the AP exam. Every year they've been taking it at Monroe High School, but this year at the last minute, I don't know why, maybe you can explain that they said no this year while we were submitting the application instead of last year, if they couldn't accommodate them to give us more time. apparently there's not going to be another district that's going to take our students. So they have been studying all these months for these exams, and we don't want to say no to them.
Well, I appreciate all the emails I received from you over the weekend, because it was not on my radar. I wasn't aware of it, and I appreciate the time you all took to email me. And I did look into that, and I'm reasonably certain we'll be able to accommodate those students after we've investigated. And we're also looking to see how we can help Middlesex Academy get in alignment with the College Board so that they will, in the future, be able to do the administration there. But I'm reasonably certain we'll be able to accommodate those students, and I will respond to you through email and let you know our status, but we're hoping to have a definitive answer
That would be
by
great.
early next week.
That would be great, because we have a new guidance counselor this year at the academy, so she may not be familiar with all the processes, because she just came to the students and said, well, Monroe High School said no, so you are the only kids who won't be able to take it this year, so the kids were very upset, because, as I said, they've been studying all year for these exams, but, you know, I really do thank you for looking into this and trying to help us, because there is no reason why we have to say no to these children. And I'm sure you agree that we cannot discourage them from doing this.
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you wish to speak?
My name is Ying Li. I'm 15 Layla Court. I'm also one of the parents that I want to express some thank you, Dr. Hamilton, that I emailed you, and I think you take a quick response and investigated on this case. And I also noticed in one of your item here, you talk about bus transportation for outside of district, which actually you form some rules and some policies. I'm hoping for AP exams, you can work together with out of district school to form some kind of policy in the future, so parents don't have to worry at last minutes.
I agree, and we're working on that, absolutely.
Just to add one more comment, the reason why we brought up, because we want to create a consistency policy, because we know from past it can take the APs. So that's why those children, they take the online classes, the outside classes, the parents invest financially, the kids invested time and resources, they work very hard up to midnight to prepare for exam. Last minute, they cannot take it. So that's why we're recommending going forward, is there any way internally, externally with the board, some consistent policy written somewhere so that we can have a law, have a policy, have a procedure to go about, so that will be consistent practice, and then people can plan things out. All right. I have two more quick questions. I believe when I asked my first question, Dr. Hamilton, you mentioned that the exam fee, $95 per course, will be covered by the school district. So we want to understand whether that applies for those kids who are not currently going to the Monroe High School.
That's the policy we have to investigate, because I don't want to.
I appreciate it.
I don't want to say something that may be contrary.
No, that's
to
okay. Well,
policy.
just a question throughout there, and then let you. Any other questions?
The reason the Middlesex County, the academy, they said that they can't hold the exams there is because they only have like 8-9 classrooms, and there's only 150 students in this school. So literally you can stand in the foyer and look at all the classrooms that they have. They don't have that many classrooms, so they have to hold regular high school classes at the same time, administer exams or proctor exams. So they don't have enough people as well, resources, and the classrooms.
Okay, well, that's probably conclude. Then now, specifics, we know Dr. Hamilton, he has a large responsibility, and I hope this small issue we can direct working closely with specific individual. So if you have any other official that can work directly with, we would love to do that. We don't want to bother you with emails, and you have a big ship to guide, so we don't want to bother you with these small little issues.
We'll probably, go ahead.
Right after you emailed me and I responded to all of your emails over the weekend, I forwarded them to Dr. Gorman.
And it'll probably be something that we would look at and through policy committee too. Mr. Leary, you had a point of clarification really quickly.
Are you in the Middlesex Regional Educational Service Commission domain? Are you in the Academy Learning Center over within Monroe Township?
Oh, no.
Or are you in the Middlesex County Academy that's
Middlesex
in
County
New Brunswick?
Academy. No, it is in Edison, within Middlesex County College. It's a small high school there, and it's through their VOTEC. So this is the
Okay.
Math and Engineering High School.
Okay, you're talking about the STEM type of work. It's right next to the south entrance.
That's the high school, yeah.
Congratulations, we finally are doing something good, and I'm very appreciative of your work.
Thank you.
Also to all the school teachers, middle school, elementary school, to educate our kids that they're taking more challenge academically. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Doug Boyd, 4 Tamarack Road. There's been various mentions of policy tonight, and actually the whole system has to run according to policy. I would simply ask, and I don't know if this is possible, but when when a member of the public goes to the board's website and attempts to find a policy, it's a very laborious process. You essentially have to wheel through all of those policies to find the policy you're looking for. There doesn't seem to be any quick way for the computer to identify the policy that you need. So it really is very, very time consuming, and hopefully within a year or so they can make some kind of improvement on that so that it's easier to get to those policies.
I think we've always been trying to improve that.
Yes, that's a good point. On the left-hand side, on the top left, there's what looks like a pair of binoculars. And if you click that, there's a search feature where you could type in the text. And it'll search the entire policy and show you all the references within the whole policy where that text applies. And it's very specific. You can adjust it however you choose. It saves time.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. That's probably because I'm not so tech savvy. But then in light of that comment, it might be helpful to the public if that information could be provided on that screen that simply talks about the policies but doesn't really get into any of them. I just think that would be helpful. And I do want to commend Mr. Klein for his continued efforts working to try to get more money coming from the state to Monroe Township.
Thank you.
I mean, he's just tireless with that, and I think that's great.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public?
Oh, now you broke it.
Jennifer Marcus, 15 Harvest View Drive. Individuals in schools with elevated CO2 concentrations report drowsiness and a decreased ability to learn. Breathing stale air with a high concentration of carbon dioxide can lead to something called sick building syndrome, since it affects everybody in the building. Studies have shown that a level of 1,000 parts per million carbon dioxide will reduce the ability to concentrate by about 30% and trigger serious medical issues in children with asthma and other health problems. On February 21st, 2006, the Air Quality Inspection Report of the Applegarth School, signed by Richard Lynch, identified that classrooms 23, 22, 5, 6, 15, 11, T4, and T7 contained levels of CO2 in excess of 1,000 parts per million. In some cases, the levels were in excess of 2,000 parts per million. CO2 levels were reported to be low in the morning and increased during the day. My questions are, how was the problem fixed? Were the teachers met with to discuss indoor air quality? Why was Lysol being sprayed? How did the school notify the parents? Was a status report of the HVAC equipment provided as per page number 5 of the report? And were the non-functioning unit ventilator fans repaired?
I think what we will do is take a copy of your questions and get the answers for you, because I'm not sure that we will be able.
I'm pretty sure I could answer most of those questions because I was acting principal there. So I know, so if you want to take them one at a time, I'm pretty sure we have, because we took all types of steps exactly like that you're mentioning there appropriately to respond to those. I am. So you want to, I could give you some quick answers to, because when you said them all, I just wasn't.
The first one was, how was the problem fixed?
Okay, so we changed out the ventilation units in all of those rooms that were identified with lower oxygen units.
Okay, were the teachers met with to discuss the indoor air quality as was
Yes,
discussed in that
Dr.
report?
Lynch actually came to several faculty meetings. We educated, Q&A'd, and when you talk about the Lysol, that was
Lysol.
specifically why, one of the responses on why we educated the staff so extensively on it.
Why was the Lysol being sprayed?
That was just that was an inappropriate action that we found by one individual.
How did the school notify the parents?
I do believe it was by letter, but I can't
Letter.
speak on the specifics of it.
Okay, was a status report of the HVAC equipment provided as per page number 5 of the report?
My belief it is, but I don't have the report and the update to it, so I can't. I know Mr. Tague was extensively involved with Dr. Lynch, and we did update the HVAC report
Was there a
on that.
follow-up indoor air quality test done?
Yes, there was.
On Friday at 5 o'clock, I was told this was the most recent report done. Could we see an updated IAQ test?
I can't provide that for you right now, but
Mr. Tague told me at 5 o'clock on Friday this was the most recent indoor air quality test done. It was dated 2006. So if we could see a more recent one.
past that. So past that incident, is that what you're looking
Past
for?
2006, do we have a more recent indoor air quality test? Because we were assured that there has never been a problem with the indoor air quality at Applegarth. Okay, and the non-functioning unit ventilator fans were all repaired or replaced?
To the best of my knowledge, as the acting principal at that time, yes.
The parents were notified that their children were exposed to high levels of CO2 and that they could experience drowsiness, dizziness, lightheadedness, and stomach aches?
I don't have the specific answer to that question.
Okay, do you know anybody that would? Are there any parents whose children were in Applegarth, maybe on the board, who had children in Applegarth during those years that would have been notified?
Your question's really in order to answer them appropriately and with the level of expertise that requires. We need Dr. Lynch, who conducted that survey and did that inspection, who could speak to those reports with a greater level of expertise.
Okay, Mr. Tague said this was the most recent indoor air quality test he had on Friday at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Robert Roach, 18 Muirfield Boulevard. I would just like to thank Mr. Gorski for his efforts in refinancing the bonds, and that will eventually save us substantial money over a substantial number of years. And also, Mr. Poi reminded me of something as he was talking. I've had problems when I've tried to go on the website and get the dates of committee meetings, specifically the Finance Committee. A month or so ago, I went on and clicked on the Finance Committee meeting site, and the curriculum came up as the agenda item, which, was of no avail. Only recently did I find out that there was a Finance Committee last night when I was at a meeting on Tuesday, and Mr. Gorski told me about it. I went on the website, and the only reference it had was February 9th meeting, but eventually I did find a little note below that had the agenda. I think it would be helpful for the public if we were, I don't know who's responsible for that, but be a little more careful in setting up the information so that when public goes on there, they can get the accurate information. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll look into that, because I know they're supposed to be posted every time we post a meeting. It's supposed to be on the website I think it's under Board of Education.
It is.
Okay, we had a change of meeting dates, so therefore we had, we should have had our committee meetings next week, so they were changed really quickly to coincide with the meeting today. So I think there was a little conflict.
Allo, 208 Gravel Hill Road. Well, this is the first time I'm seeing this report on the HVAC system and the carbon dioxide. I have a question, is back on this date in 2006, were any of you board members during that time? And if so, then you should have knowledge that this took place, and I would think that you would be part responsible to make sure that it was fixed, but yet There's a lot of speculation saying we're not sure, maybe. This is very disturbing, to say the least, because nobody knows if this was fixed. And if some of you are on the board, I'd like to know if you were aware of this, and why should we have to wait for Dr. Lynch? Because Dr. Lynch has made a very elaborate report that I'm assuming all of you, or not all of you, the individuals, if there are any, my children are young, so I didn't have children in the system back in 2006. But is there anybody on the current board that was a board member during 2006?
Oh, my children were in the school.
Were you notified?
I believe so.
I believe so. Were steps taken to
And my
resolve
children
this
are
problem?
perfectly healthy today, just like Mr. Gorham is.
Okay, well, I'm glad your children are, but
Nor have I ever heard of anything from like the Center for Disease Control that we had some outrageous amount of illness or anything like that.
Were any nurses' reports ever taken to do a study to see if the children were reporting any elaborate headaches or vomiting or
If there were
nausea?
reports to the nurse, it would be a confidential report. We can't share information on other
I'm
students.
not asking you to share, I'm just saying, I mean, in general. We're hearing here that we're not sure if this was fixed. This is 6 years ago.
I can tell you that anytime there's been a problem with air quality in our district, right away we handle it. We get the people that need to come in to test the air, and then we remediate if there needs to be a remediation. Mr. Gorski?
Yeah, I would also like to assure you that we will have all appropriate air quality testing done before a student is placed back in that school or a staff member is placed back in that school. The oxygen levels, the CO2 levels, the radon levels, everything you can think of will be tested to make sure that that building is safe for students and staff.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I have 3 grandchildren in this district,
Mhm.
and I had a grandson who was going through at that time down, and we rely as members of the board, we're unpaid elected officials. We rely on subject matter experts like Dr. Lynch, and he is a marvelous man. He has testified in so many hearings, other things like that, and we had recent, Tuesday, Lou Masters, and he made a fine presentation, and we are monitoring that using the subject matter experts. We're not a subject matter. I'm an electrical engineer. I don't know the first damn thing about indoor air quality. But we rely on Dr. Lynch because he's got very high credibility in this district.
And I do understand that. I'll leave. Mrs. Margus just said that she's asked if there was tests done and reports submitted after the state. She was told that this was the last report.
We had a report, Tuesday, Lou?
This passed.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
They had the
That was,
federal,
Yeah.
the federal
And
monitor
we've had
2 days.
all of the different monitoring organizations, OSHA, EPA, the whole schmear.
Okay,
State and
then
federal
why
level.
why
This is
aren't this
something
record?
that
Why
we're
isn't this part of record then? If this is, shouldn't those follow-ups be in the record along with this one?
We would have to go and ask, because I, at this point, don't know. So we
It
would
was
have.
still being done.
Well, we know right now the air quality is being
This was
tested,
6 years ago.
and we'll look into
I'm talking
it.
about what they're doing today.
We'll look into it.
Good evening, Tracy Riley, 228 Day Grove Road. I was at the last grounds meeting at Oak Tree School, and I brought up to Dr. Lynch about the lead in the school. And he stood there and he said, there is no lead in the school. Well, we were just advised they tested, and in 3 spots in the school they found lead. I just want to know, are they going to test more for more things? Because we were told, he stood there and said, there's no lead, and I said to him, the school's been painted, the school was built in 1936, they've painted that school numerous times, how can there not be any lead? He stood there and said, there's no lead in the school. We were just told 45 minutes ago, they found lead in 3 spots, in the hallway, in the boiler room, and in the cafeteria.
Kitchen.
I'm sorry, in the kitchen. Are they going to test in more spots in the school? I mean, I'm being told one thing at one meeting and one thing in another meeting.
I believe he said that he didn't know if there
No, he said there was no lead in the school.
I don't think he said that. But they tested, I believe, every room in that school for lead, and they only found possibility of lead. He didn't say there was lead yesterday. He said there was, he believes there might be, but they need to do the testing and get the results back. The results are not back yet. So if there are, that would be the only three places in the school that would have a possibility of lead. And he advised us to go ahead with the painting and the lighting and the flooring in the areas that don't have any problems. He also said yesterday that they would be testing the outside for the possibility of lead, that those tests have not gone on yet, but they will be to do so.
My other issue is the radon. You said you're going to be testing all the schools for radon. When are we going to be testing, and when will we get those results?
That decision was just made last night, so we have
Okay.
a process we have to go through, so I can't give you an absolute date yet.
And the third issue is fire. Okay, I know the school's been grandfathered. What are we going to do about sprinklers? What are we going to do about firewalls? What are we going to do about issues that, God forbid, there's a fire in that school?
We're going to follow the guidelines that we are required to follow. Whatever that means in terms of meeting code as it relates to those issues will be done.
Okay, even though we had somebody who was a firefighter standing here saying that the school is going to be unsafe for those children without having sprinklers, without having firewalls.
My answer is not going to change. We're going to follow all the guidelines that we're required to according to the state.
We've had the fire department come in and check that building. We've had every.
No, I understand that, because it's grandfathered, which means it's saying that it's safe because it's grandfathered. I see sprinklers all over in the school here because it's a brand-new school. We're talking it's an old school. I mean, I'm not comfortable putting my child in a school that has no sprinklers.
We don't have sprinklers at Barkley Brook either.
No, I understand that. It's an old school because it's a grandfathered law. I mean, you're talking putting kids in. Kids are going to have a fire drill, okay? When there's no fire, they know what to do with the fire drill. When there is a fire, kids are going to panic. And you only have so many teachers to lead a kid out to where they're supposed to be. What happens to that kid who runs to the closet or goes under a desk and doesn't know what to do? Is there
And
money somewhere?
I don't think most of us here are experts in the fire, but we have to trust the experts to give us the answers that we are looking for. And when we ask them and we have them in more than once and they give us a report that everything is safe in that school, I have to trust in those people.
Well, they're saying it's safe because it's grandfathered. That's what they're saying.
They're saying it's safe.
Well, let's just hope, God forbid, there's never an incident in that school.
I hope
Because
there's never
kids-
an incident in any school in our
Because
district.
kids will be kids, okay? And one kid's going to come in with a lighter, and they're going to play, or they're going to come in with matches, and let's just hope there's never a problem, because I don't want it on anybody's heads because it was grandfathered. If there's a way to look into the budget to maybe put some extra fire sprinklers in, or to do something else to make that school a little bit safer, because you never know what's going to happen. He brought in documentation, and he showed you what can happen when there's not sufficient, sprinklers.
Thank you.
So let's just hope something never happens in that school.
Anyone else from the public?
Oh, here we go.
Good evening. Chrissy Skirby, 8 Seminole Court. I just had a question on what Jennifer Marcus gave the information about the unit ventilators and the carbon dioxide issue that Applegarth had. I know it was stated last night that testing will be done once the children are back in the school. That's the only way that you could test carbon dioxide levels. How is that acceptable if we've never tested? We know we had an issue in 2006. Jerry Tague is saying that there's never been a test since then. How do we know that the problem was rectified? Because in Dr. Lynch's report, it's based on inadequate air supply caused by an old HVAC system. So how do we know that that was adequately addressed if we have no test?
We're going to be checking into it. We're going to be doing air quality tests before. We had said we
You
will be
can't test-
air quality tests after the kids
But you
are in the
cannot
school.
test for carbon dioxide unless the school is filled with
We will be
individuals.
testing after the school starts.
So we're supposed to put our children in there.
There were still some children in that school in 2007, in 2008, in
And we have
2009.
no idea.
We have not heard of any problems from.
There was a problem in 2006.
Exactly.
And you never retested to see if what you did solved the problem. There was never another IAQ test done. And now there's not children there, so you can't do one. So you're telling all of us parents, put your children in there. Let's hope in '06 we rectified it by unit ventilators, not a new HVAC system that clearly states why there's a lack of flow of air. Put your children in there and we'll hope that we corrected it in '06. And what happens if it comes back with the high levels of carbon dioxide?
Then we will do what we did in '06, rectify the situation.
And by rectifying it said that Dr. Lynch's recommendations was to have the teachers open the windows. Is that how you're going to rectify it?
I can't tell you because we don't have an issue.
You do have an issue.
No, we don't have an issue.
You do have an issue. You have no IAQ report since 2006, and that report stated a problem.
Matter of fact, there was a significantly higher number of students in that building at that time than there will be for the 4th and 5th grades that re-enter that school. We will test the air quality for CO2, for radon, and everything else that the officials feel is an appropriate test before the students come into the school and during occupancy to make sure that the levels are safe while they're in there.
But you can't get an accurate carbon dioxide level if students are not there. The only way you could rectify the problem is by putting a new HVAC system in, and that's what the parents have been begging for.
Is there anyone else from the public?
Goldstein, 15 Nathaniel Street. It appears every meeting I come to, there's a certain contingent of people that are going to not be happy with moving their children into Applegarth, no matter what. As far as the air quality, I know one thing about this board: they would never, ever consider putting children into an unsafe environment. So I want to state that unequivocally right now. As far as air quality, you do not have to have children in to measure CO2. It's a simple airflow test that's performed constantly in office buildings. It's not that they're going to have to put children in danger to do this test. I think it might behoove the board to get the expert here at one of the meetings to maybe address these concerns.
We just did that. We opened up a Buildings and Grounds meeting at Oak Tree School to answer any of the questions. We had all the experts at that point to answer questions.
Okay, well, it was a good idea. It was a good idea while it lasted. And I think it's important to know when we talk about grandfathering, that's really not a good word to use. It's meeting the code. I'll guarantee you, of all these people that are complaining about Applegarth, that they go home, they do not keep their houses up to the fire code every single year. I wonder how many parents have sprinklers in their home system, because that is the safest according to what they're saying. So I see a certain amount of people that want it both ways. I appreciate the board. We have to watch out for the tax dollars while keeping our kids safe, which I know for a fact this board is doing. So I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the board? From the public?
Hi, good evening. My name is May Chun from 16 Eldorado Way. In 2006, you were the Madam President of the board. You knew about the situation. You did not notify me. I did not get anything in the mail. As I recall, that my daughter was getting sick in the school with stomach problem and headaches.
If there was a problem,
I just found out at this meeting that Jennifer Marcus has notified us with the carbon dioxide.
It would not, the report or the letter home would not have come from me. It would have come from probably Dr. Gorman at the time, who was the principal of the school. It would come from the principal of the school, not from the Board of Education president.
I am so appalled from the board. What you guys have not done, notify me of my child, of the air she's breathing. I have another child that's going to be going to Abergath. Are you going to notify me? Are you going to remediate everything before you send my daughter to Abergath?
All I can tell you again is that we have the...
Because you have no children in that school right now, you don't care.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Seeing none.
Can't we say something?
Dr. Lynch has been in Monroe Township for how long?
11 years.
10 years, at least
11.
10 years.
Volunteering or paid?
He gets paid.
He gets paid. For how many years?
11
10 years, 11 years?
10 to 11 years. So for the 10 to 11 years, you never second guess just because he's called Dr. Lynch? I would go for a second opinion if it had to do with my kids. If you don't have the knowledge, you look into it. That's what I'm doing. I'm looking into it. I'm second guessing a Dr. Lynch that, what, did he say 100%? Did he say 100%? He cannot guarantee it. I'm looking into it as much as I can. Are all of you looking into this? Paid or unpaid? I know, you'll sit there and be quiet. You don't have the knowledge. You need to rely on other people for it. I'm relying on you. I'm relying on all of you. So I need to have a degree or I have to be a doctor to sit here and say this will be safe? I have to go through all my little emails and everything to send everybody?
I don't know what you want me to tell you, because I said this.
Don't say Dr. Lynch said so and that is it. That's not it.
What about
Thank you. No, that's fine. I know. It's not going to make a difference, so thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none, our next scheduled public board. Is it Thursday, March? Thursday, March 22nd, 7 o'clock. A motion to adjourn, Ms. Intellis,
Done.
Mr. Kaufman, all in favor? Thank you.
Aye.